Hello everyone and welcome back to Closets Gaming. Today we are going to take a look at Delay. This action game that is heavily inspired by Superhot promises a similar experience to Superhot, but in a 2D environment. Whether it can deliver on that promise and implement it well is the question we will try to answer today. Delay is available on Steam for €1.99 or your regional equivalent. A 2D Superhot. That certainly sounds like an interesting concept, as I've enjoyed playing Superhot very much and I have been very much craving a similar experience. And only for $2, so I immediately picked this up and dove straight into it. But now let's get straight into the review, and as usually we will start by going over the mechanics. As a game inspired by Superhot, you can probably guess the Delay will use some sort of manipulation based on your movement. And the basic premise sounds pretty solid. As you move, all the other characters move as well, but they aren't at a complete stop if you aren't moving. They are just slowed down. Yeah, it's that blatant of a copy of Superhot. Another mechanic copied from Superhot is the fact that you can throw your weapons towards your enemies to stun them briefly. This, of course, is a mechanic you need to master, because otherwise you just won't be capable to complete a lot of the levels. Apart from these two mechanics essentially copy-pasted from Superhot, Delay pretty much only has two other mechanics: movement and shooting, and those are pretty much exactly the way you would expect them to work. Now that we know what the mechanics are, let's talk about how they work and, most importantly, how they feel. And I want to start with saying, I don't actually mind the fact that Delay copies things so blatantly from Superhot. The concept that Superhot presented were new, original, and really awesome. It was just a matter of time until another developer tried using them in their own games. What I do have a problem with is the way they are implemented in, and I'm mostly talking about the slow time mechanic. In Superhot, the way the time was slowed felt so natural. Enemies just did the same exact things as they would do in real time, just really slowly. Here the mechanic sort of works like this, but only for the movement, though, of both the enemies and the projectiles flying your way. And on the other hand, it doesn't work like this for when the enemies fire. Instead, they have this little counter above their heads that is ticking down to 0, and once it hits, that's when they fire. This particular mechanic is probably my biggest gripe with the game, and on its own it manages to cause the game to feel really weird. Instead of the fluidity of Superhot, you get these bursts of action around which you must plan order action, and while it isn't a completely bad mechanic, it just doesn't feel right. The second mechanic I don't really like is the jumping system. In Delay, you can double jump, and weirdly enough, sometimes you can triple jump, but I haven't been able to find any pattern to when you can triple jump and when you can't, and this inconsistency is just mind-boggling to me. Apart from these two issues, the game is fine, but the problem is that these two things play a pretty major role in the gameplay and make it feel much less awesome than it could have been. Now let's move on to the graphics. Delay boasts a pixel art style focused primarily on simplicity. And to be honest, I do like it a lot. I really like pixel art and I do like simple things, so this art style and I are a match made in heaven. The only complaint I have about this is it's again heavily and obviously inspired by Superhot. I do think that just a few changes in the art style, like giving a bit more detail to the character and enemies, could have gone a long way to somehow differentiate Delay from Superhot instead of making it Superhot clone, just even in the terms of graphics. Now we have the music. Or don't. And we actually don't. Delay doesn't have any music included as part of the game, and it seriously baffles me. There are lots and lots of bands that would just love to get free exposure for music they have already created. There are tons and tons of royalty-free music that can be easily found online, and yet still the developers of Delay decided not to include any of it, and it really hurts the game. Yes, of course, you can just play your favorite music in the background, and I suppose that's what a lot of people do these days anyway. But a game completely without music is just a bad business decision in my personal opinion. Performance-wise, Delay worked just fine, and apart from the little issues mentioned, sometimes the double, sometimes the triple jump, it worked perfectly. It didn't crash and it ran well, and the thing is, I didn't expect it that it wouldn't run well because, well, it's a 2D game. So, in conclusion, Delay is a painfully average copy-paste of a successful game from last year's set in 2D. It has lots of issues like the game feeling somewhat weird at times due to the countdown mechanic. On the other hand, it does entertain for a decent amount of time and it costs only $2. And $2 is nothing these days, so I'm actually going to recommend this game to you guys. If you're looking for a cheap way to spend 20 minutes for a few days, Delay will serve you well. And even if you don't like it, well, you spent just $2. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you liked the review, and if you did, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel. And comment if you had something you would like to add. See you guys later with more gaming content.